inconceivable for us, right? How is that even possible? So that's his inconceivable potency. Now, if he is that great now, why don't people recognize Krishna? There you'll find histories about, even in the history books for that matter, you don't really see Lord Krishna as one of the kings. You'll hear about Krishna in mythology maybe, right? Accounts of his, other than our scriptures. But people think of him as some great personality. So they're always trying to hypothesize or come up with various theories about who he is or who he is not. But that too, Krishna wants to clear in Arjuna's mind. Now there's no time because he's given a lot of gyan through the first several chapters. Now he's getting to a point like, okay, the battle is about to begin now, let's get serious. Know what your duties are, what you're supposed to do. So he explains how foolish people are. He says, Avajananti mamudha manusham tanamashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. So he says, the foolish people, they don't even realize who I am and they deride me when I, descend in my transcendental form. They don't understand Krishna's transcendental form. And Krishna very clearly says even earlier in chapter 4, where he says, if you understand my transcendental pastimes and my transcendental self, you're not going to come back to this life ever again. Janma karma cha me divyamras, right? So it's very, very clear now. He's making it even more clear, saying that there are people like that. So people like that will, think that he's just a cowherd boy. He's just having, fun pastimes with the gopas and the gopis and the cowherds and the calves and the cows and so on. And even when Krishna becomes the king of Dwaraka, Dwaraka was not a small kingdom. Krishna had a massive, massive kingdom. He had an akshani of soldiers, an army that had over 1 million soldiers. So now, even then, when Krishna went on behalf of the Pandavas to mediate and ask Duryodhana and the rest of the Kauravas, hey, give what is due to the Pandavas. We're not asking for the entire kingdom, but give whatever is due to them, what is rightfully theirs. Please give it to them. What did Duryodhana say? He said, no, I'm not going to give you anything. Not as much as a pinhead. He wasn't willing to give anything. Forget 9 villages. I'm not going to give you anything. And things escalated. And even as Krishna spoke, Duryodhana had, summoned his soldiers into the assembly. And so then Krishna actually chose to show his universal form to Duryodhana. Now, what did Duryodhana do? At least then he should have come to his senses. The vain and proud person that he was, he scoffed at Krishna and said, Krishna is showing, this is all magic, this is all illusion. If Krishna can show, even I can show different forms. What do you think? This is how Duryodhana's thinking, his mindset was. He just refused to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality. So the next 4 verses explain how, Krishna should be recognized, how he should be worshipped. So that's 16 through 19, where he says, Aham kratur, aham yagya. So he's saying, I am the master of all sacrifices. I am the yagya purusha. I am the beneficiary and the benefactor of all sacrifices. Right? And then he goes on to the next verse where he says, I am Sharanam. Suhurt is the key word there. That's why I've highlighted that, because he says, hey, I'm so compassionate. In spite of being the ultimate creator, right? Yeah, being the Supreme Personality. It again boggles my mind to think when we have a little power, we become so proud and we're like, the chest comes out and the voice, the tone, everything changes. The way we look up and, I'm not talking for all of you, I'm just... But even that little power can corrupt us. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna here, is so humble. And he is not just humble, but he's more importantly compassionate. He loves all the living entities, right? We're all his children. And so he wants us back. And so he says, I am not only the creator, but I am the most intimate friend. I'm your dear friend. I mean, we see Hiranyakashipu, right? We've all heard of his pastimes and how he was so proud and the way he dealt with, ruthlessly. And not just then, even now we're seeing several personalities, right? You turn on the TV and you'll see it. I don't have to take any names. I don't have to give any introductions. Ruthless. Hundreds and thousands of people are getting displaced, women, children, families, for no reason, innocent people, right? It doesn't have to be that way. The problem is we tend to turn away from Krishna. Krishna doesn't turn away from us. Krishna is always looking to us with open arms. We choose to turn away from Krishna and we get ourselves into trouble. And with that trouble comes misery and everything else. We don't think of the consequences. So when we get into trouble, what do? We generally pray. That's the time when we at least, think maybe we should pray. Some of us will think, okay, we should pray. And invariably, because of various reasons in abundance, maybe the conditioning, maybe the lack of knowledge, the majority, 99.9% of the people who turn towards the higher authorities will go to a demigod and pray to the demigod and say, please give me this, solve this problem, get me out of this trouble, right? Which is also fine. But Krishna says that even these are only benedictions that are given. And by the way, the demigods are only obliged to give material benedictions. And where are they getting their power from? They're getting their power from a higher authority, and that is Krishna. So they're saying, we would like to help you, and they help us. And of course, our karmic reactions and all of those things play into the whole thing. So things manifest in a certain way. But nevertheless, our mindset is all about getting something to take care of us for that particular moment, get us out of that hot seat. And whatever we get, also, it could be a little beyond, like for instance, we may get more wealth, we may get a better job, we may get whatever it is that we're asking for and we get it, depending on our karma and depending on, one of the demigods. And by the way, there are 33 crore demigods in India itself, right? I don't know, in the rest of the world, there may be other versions of it. That's 3.3 million. So, in a way, we get accused of being pantheistic, right? Because we're so confused. We don't know who to go to. And here Krishna is giving straight. Don't get into all of that. Just hear me out. This is how it should be. He's being very, very, very direct. And he says that even the demigods, so even these folks who are going to the demigods, are also coming to me indirectly. It's not directly, through the demigods. And the demigods also, whatever they give, like I was about to say earlier, was that they all have an expiration date. Whatever we get is not forever. We may have wealth for maybe this season, this year, next year, a few years, but after that it's gone. Similarly, everything else that we get. But we don't think of it that way, right? We're just looking, we're living in the moment, we're just thinking, let me just get through this situation. Once I get through this situation, I'm fine. Tough crowd, seriously. So, Krishna is saying that, even for people who are praying on a regular basis, even to the demigods, they're being pious. And people who are pious, it's not that they're doing something wrong, it could be better. Because they're still on the material plane. So when we are on a pious plane, that is, being good to everybody, you'll find a lot of this, people practice, be good to everybody, all those things are good, those values are good, we all should have that. But the intent with which and the end goal with which we go to, you work towards is usually not direct. And therefore, even the benefits, the results are also temporary. Okay, so what happens? Krishna is saying, okay, fine, you're gaining a lot of pious credits, your bank is growing with a lot of pious credits. What happens? You're still coming back to this material world. You're still coming back into a next life, into another body, but it'll be in a better place. It may be in an aristocratic family, it could be in a pious family, it could be in a, so things will be better, but again, it depends on what we do then, which determines what the next life is going to be. And this keeps going on and on and on and on, and before you know it, you could end back in this material world. Now, if you look at the positive side of things, you could do really well, you could really improve on that piety and then go to the higher planets. So you get promoted to the higher planets. Maybe you don't have to come back to Mother Earth. Maybe you go into, the next higher planet, all the way up to Brahma's planet, which is Brahmaloka, which is the highest in this material universe. But even that is in the material universe. Even Brahma has a finite life. What to speak of the demigods? And what to speak of us, moving up and up and up and up. We get promoted all the way to Brahma's planet. For what? We eventually have to come down. Brahma has a lifespan of 311 trillion years. But even after that, he has an expiration date as well. He also has to come back. So that goes on and on and on. And so, Krishna says, okay, maybe I missed one here. Yeah. So this continues on and on and on, but he also explains, Krishna says, okay, so these are the the segment of people that are not doing it right. But what about the very alloyed devotees, people who are doing it right? What happens to them? And so he explains here, so he says, this is a very, very good verse to remember and memorize. And Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah paripashate tesham nitya bhuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. So Krishna is clearly saying that he is the sustainer of everything in this creation of his. And it's eternal. It's eternal, right? And he decides, when and how all of this needs to progress. It's all within his control. And so he gives us exactly what we deserve, especially to his devotees. Now, that reminds me of a pastime where, Arjunacharya was a Brahmana who, most of you may have heard of this pastime, where he was writing a commentary on the Bhagavad-Gita. And at this particular juncture where he was on this verse, he saw the terms vahamyaham, because Krishna says, I carry what you lack and preserve what you have. He's giving his word. Those are very, very heavy things. He's actually true to his word. But at the same time, Arjunacharya, when he was, making a note on this particular verse, he was thinking to himself, how can that be? Why would the Supreme Personality carry someone else's burden? Why would he carry the burden of his devotees? So he very promptly said, no, must be some mistake. So he just struck the word vahami and put karomi in there instead. And then he went about his way, being a Brahmana. He would go and beg for his alms, have a shower, and bring whatever alms he had back to his family, and his wife would cook, and, it would be offered, the bhoga would be offered, and then they would, take it. But when he got home that day, his wife was sitting there happily, eating away. And he was shocked. He was like, what's going on here? Because according to the Vedic system, bhoga is first offered, the head of the household, accepts it, and then, only then, the wife and everybody else. But here the wife was just sitting and she was not even looking at him. And he was like, something's wrong here. So yeah, so what happened? And she reluctantly looks up at him and says, how could you be such a horrible man? And he was like, what? What's going on? And then she tells him, there were these two boys who knocked on the door shortly after you left, and they seemed to be in a great deal of anxiety. And they seemed to be in a real hurry. They wanted to get out of here. They had this, the food in their hands, and they said, Mother, we would like to give you this. We were asked to give you the food, and we have to leave. So she was like, why? Why don't you come in and sit down? What's going on? And they were saying, no, we have to leave, we have to leave, we have to leave. Otherwise, we're going to be chastised by your husband. And if you don't believe it, we will even get beaten. If you don't believe it, look. And so one of the boys turns around and he shows he has a big, long mark on his back. So the wife is like shocked. She's like, my husband is leading a double life. In this day and age, of course, that may be common. But during those times, it was a shocker. And so she's completely devastated. She's like, how can this be? And before she knew it, the boys turned and ran away. So she discloses this to her husband, Arjunacharya. And then Arjunacharya is like, me? When did I do that? So momentary lapse of memory, right? But he's thinking, and then he realizes that this could have only been Krishna and Balaram. So he asks his wife, how are they, how did they look? And when she described all of that, it dawned on him, it was definitely Krishna and Balaram who actually made their appearance, and how fortunate his wife was that they were able to, that she was able to actually get their darshan, right? That she could see them. Same thing with Sudama. Krishna actually came. So in this particular case, Krishna and Balaram came in person to let Arjunacharya know that, hey, this is not wrong, this is true. I will carry what you lack. And I will preserve what you have. I mean, carry what you don't have, I'm getting it mixed up. But anyway, you get the picture. And then same thing with Sudama, right? Sudama also makes his appearance with Krishna, and all he has is chipped rice. But he does it with love. And Krishna is just giving him more and more and more, because he knows that Sudama is coming to him with love. Okay, so moving on. Krishna in the next verse is saying that he is the master of sacrifices, or he is the Yajna Purusha. And he very, very clearly says that Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhur evacha. So he's saying that he is the master of sacrifices, so don't think otherwise. Make sure that you understand that whatever you're doing it for me. And then he goes on to say, because not all of us are in a stage of pure devotional service. So Krishna is making it easier for us. So in this verse, which is again a very well-known verse, it says, Patram Pushpam Phalam, right? He's saying that just offer me, whether it is a leaf or a flower, a fruit, or even a little water. But if you offer it to me with faith, with love, I will accept it. So there is no complicated procedures, samskaras. He's not talking about a long list of expensive ingredients as we would do in offerings for other demigods, right? No expensive Brahmins or pujaris. That also happens, and believe me, I went through that. My mother passed away a few years ago, and as and all the relatives practically descended on me. It should be done this way, it should be done that way. They all had 10 million opinions. Fortunately, at least the major part of the ceremony, I was able to do it the way we would, and kept it as simple as possible. But the 13th day when that function happened, they insisted that I do it in a certain way. And that meant the pujari coming in, doing his thing, and then we would have to give something in return. That something turned out to be, I'll tell you, that pujari brought, he wanted not only grains, but he also wanted clothes. He wanted grains and fruits and all, of course. He wanted money. And in addition to that, he also wanted gold. And not just for himself. He brought 20 of his disciples with him. Yeah. So practically all those arrangements had to be done at very short notice. And you're going through a difficult time as it is. And then on top of that, you have... So this is quite normal, I'm told. I don't know how many of you... Well, I don't want you to be in that situation ever at all. But I'm just saying, so these are kinds of things that we go through, which doesn't make any sense. And Krishna is so kind. I mean, he's saying, I don't need any of that. Just give me a leaf, just give me a flower, just give me a fruit, just give me a drop of water. Even that will do. You may not be in your pure devotional stage. You may not be, because we are mixed devotees, right? There is maybe just a tiny bit of purity in what we do for Krishna. But the majority of it is contamination, right? That's the nature of this material world. And as we go to the higher planets, they're still mixed devotees. It's not like, the demigods are pure. They are also mixed devotees. But there, the proportions are different, right? They have a lot more purity and maybe very slight, very, very slight impurities or contamination. But that goes all the way up to Brahmaloka, right? That happens. But Krishna is so kind. He's saying, I understand that, you guys are not at that stage where you're completely pure, where you have spontaneous love for me. So I understand. So all you need to do is just give me this. Simple, simple, simple. He's made it very, very simple. It reminds me of, the fruit vendor that had a basket of fruits, and she sees little Krishna, and she's so attracted by little baby Krishna that she's just spontaneously giving fruits, in his hand. And his little hands can only hold so much. Is dropping them, the fruits are falling, she's putting more and more fruit. She's just lost. She's just looking at him, and she's so attracted that she's just filling his hands, and fruits are just falling. And what is Krishna doing? Krishna is loving that engagement. He sees the spontaneity of her love towards him, her affection. And secretly, he is filling her basket with precious jewels and ornaments and everything else. Krishna reciprocates, and that's Krishna. Krishna, when he is pleased, he reciprocates so easily. So, now we're getting to the heart. Wow, it's 6:15. She's not watching. So, we're now getting to the heart, or the essence, right, of this confidential knowledge. So, are you ready? All right. So, Krishna says, Yat karosi yad ashnasi, yad juhosi dadasi, yat tapasisi, kaunteya, tat kurushra madarpanam. He's saying, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever penances you perform, do it as an offering to me. He says, don't waste your time, doing it for yourself or doing it for this demigod or that demigod. Just do it for me. So, this is an important verse. And then he says, if you do it right, then Shubha Shubha Phale Revam Mokshasya Karma Bandhana Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma. He says, so if you do this right, then it doesn't matter, all of these auspicious and inauspicious activities mean nothing. Because now you've transcended, right? Now you're free from all of the karmic reactions. And most importantly, he says, Vimukto Mam Evaisyasi, or Upaisyasi in this case. So he says, you will come to me. And Krishna is saying this. He's giving very clear instructions. You will come to me. And this couldn't be better exemplified by the residents of Vraja, right? I mean, when you think about Vrindavan, right, and you think about the residents of Vraja, and you see their expressions. Okay, so they're householders, they have children, they have cows and calves, they have responsibilities to take care of. But in the midst of all of this, they also have Krishna and Balaram. And they're so attracted. No matter what they're doing, they're constantly absorbed. They have their own children, but they're still attracted to Krishna. Whatever they're doing during the day, washing their clothes, attending to the calves or cows, cooking, whatever it is, they're still thinking about Krishna. And so much so that they're in total separation, when Krishna is off to the fields to take care of the cows. And they're waiting anxiously for him to return. And when it's dusk and he's back with all the cows and calves and all the gopas, they're coming out of their homes, welcoming him as though, it's happening for the very first time. And this is happening on a daily basis. So you just think about the love and affection, and it's so spontaneous, right? So that's the kind of love that Krishna is enjoying there with the Vrajas. That's the loving exchange, and that's the spontaneity that he's talking about. And if that's the mood that we can aspire for, then this material bondage is just going to be a thing of, it'll just evaporate. It's not even going to exist. But we have to get to that stage. And then Krishna says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshosti na priyaha. So he says, I am equal to all the living entities. I have nothing against anyone. But he is, even among those, he is still compelled to reciprocate with his devotees. So, if at all there is a weakness, and you can call it a weakness, it is this. Krishna loves his devotees. He has that special soft corner in the heart for his devotees. So he's compelled to reciprocate to his devotees. And because he's a Bhakta Vatsalya at the end of the day, right? So he's truly compassionate and he wants him back with him at all times, back in the spiritual world. So in the next verse, we're getting close to finish here. He says, Kaunteya pratignahi name bhakta pranashiti. So he's saying, Arjuna, go and proclaim this boldly. And now you may wonder why Krishna is saying that. Krishna has said so many things. He can also as well say the same thing and tell the whole world, tell all of humanity. But he's saying, Arjuna, you go do it. Why? And our acharyas tell us that, he's, like I said, Bhakta Vatsalya, which means he is also, he'll do anything for his devotees. Even if that means that he has to go against his own word. Take an example, right? And you will see here in this picture, Krishna is holding up that chariot wheel. And this chariot wheel has happened only because Bhishma Dev is shooting away arrows at Arjuna, and Arjuna is reeling. Bhishma is fantastic. The only person who could actually, deal with him on a one-on-one basis was Arjuna. And even Arjuna was reeling with the fierceness of Bhishma Dev's rapid fire of arrows. So when Krishna saw that and Arjuna faints at that point in time, he's like, oh my gosh, this is not right. And he's angered. He has divya, krodha. I mean, at that point, he has transcendental anger. He's rushing towards Bhishma Dev, and he knows exactly where Bhishma Dev. And Bhishma Dev says, if Krishna comes towards me, I'm going to drop my weapons. I'm not going to fight against Krishna. Krishna has given the word that he will not pick up any weapons during the battle of Kurukshetra. Well, here he is, lifting this wheel and charging towards Bhishma Dev. So Arjuna, in the meanwhile, wakes up. He comes to his senses, his consciousness, and then he runs towards Krishna, and he's trying to hold Krishna back, and Krishna is dragging him. It's several feet before Krishna comes to a grinding halt. And Arjuna is begging him. He's begging him, please, please, Krishna, don't go against your word. You gave your word to everybody that you are not going to pick up any weapons. I mean, the chariot wheel is definitely not a weapon, but for Krishna, it could be Sudarshan Chakra also, who knows. But Krishna is willing to do that even for his devotee at the cost of his own reputation. And so that's why he's saying, if my devotee says that, then I will uphold my devotee's words and devotees. So that's why he says, my devotee never perishes. So that brings us to the final verse, which is the most important one. And this is the verse that is repeated twice in the Bhagavad-Gita. Right? And it is the most confidential. So clearly Krishna here is saying, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam e vaisyasi yuktvavam atmanam mat parayanam. So he's saying, surrender to me and you have my word, you will come back to me. Mam e vaisyasi. So do we need any other explanation? I mean, do we need any other logic? Do we need any other proof? This is coming directly from Krishna. He's saying it without mincing his words. Absolutely crystal clear. And so in chapter 18, he repeats this, and then after that the verse is, abandon all forms of religion, right? Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam braja. So he says, just surrender unto me, and you don't have to worry about another life. You don't have to worry about all the material miseries that you're going through. All of these things that you're going through are temporary. Today they're here, tomorrow they're gone. This body is here today, tomorrow it's gone. But what will remain is our exchange and our relationship with Krishna. That will always remain in this life, next life, and so on. So that is the most confidential. And it is super simplified to a point that I can see some of us are just looking at this. This is what we waited for? This is the most confidential knowledge? This simple? Nah, it cannot be. It has to be something more complicated. It is not. Believe me, it is not. And when I say believe me, from my little fun of experience that I'm gaining through, association with the devotees over the years, even those tiny little moments of happiness of joy, or feeling free, or feeling, away from all of the material miseries that we have, is something that is true. It is not an illusion. And if we continue doing that together, eternal life. That's all we need. So, Prabhupada, the last slide here. So, Prabhupada says, the most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge. And this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. It goes back to where he started, where he said, Arjuna, I am disclosing this to you because you're not envious of me. So hopefully that was kind of helpful. I know I rushed right through it. But Mataji, do we have any time for any questions or no? Oh, okay. Do you have a permission? Yeah.
You will get, but you will punish.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Sorry, I went a little over, but it's...
Thank you so much, Sri Vallabha Prabhu. Please give a big hand. I have 2-3 announcements. So first is the Sunday feast. As for so many years actually, this devotee Deva Iyer has been sponsoring Sunday feast for his son and always request prayers from all the devotees for his well-being. So that is one Sunday feast sponsorship today. If Deva Iyer is here, can you please come? Ramdas Prabhu, are you here? I hope so, yeah. Can you please come here and I can have one of that? And today, myself and Nirendra Prabhu are sponsoring for celebrating the first birthday of Veera Krishna. So Veera Krishna, Shruti, can you please bring? Shruti can bring, please. Wow. Yeah. Shruti is bringing Veera Krishna, Haribol. It is your birthday. Here, happy birthday. Oh. Happy birthday, okay? Okay, I'll take it. Where is that? Yes. Happy birthday for you. Okay. Seek your blessings for his happy birthday, Krishna. Okay, here, you go. Okay, so he turned 1 on March 1st. It's a big milestone. March 3rd. I'm sorry. Tripti, I apologize. Last week there was no prasadam here because of some... But we have one here today. And can you please give that to me, Prabhu? Deva Iyer is here. We can make another one. Okay, thank you. Deva Iyer, Prabhu, thank you so very much. Hare Krishna. So some very important announcements. This is month of March. So beginning from this month, we have every month something is happening here. March, as all of you know, Gaura Purnima. Big Gaura Purnima festival. And Sumangala Mataji is here. She is organizing the whole event. And there is something very special about this year's Gaura Purnima. There is, in getting ready for our deity installation, many of our devotees who are getting trained under Shatrupa and Pratibahu Prabhu for completing their Bhakti Shastri course. They would have completed by then. And a big batch of students who have completed, they will all be taking spiritual initiation, second initiation on that day. And so it is a Gaura Purnima plus celebration of all of this. These devotees are getting trained. They will be getting trained to serve the deities. And it's a big step for our whole institution here in Naperville. Please give a big hand for the students and the teachers. And so this amazing effort, this shows that nothing happens without Krishna's sanction, because a few years ago when Shatarupa and Pradibahu went and took the teacher's training course, there was no indication that we are going to have our temple completed and the deities installed at this particular time. And so they are just finishing their coursework just in time to receive the training and serve the deity. So this is Krishna's arrangement. And this is not just one thing that I have seen in the course of this whole service to building this temple, and step by step, 1,000,000 times, so many things have come in place, which is clearly indicative that Krishna wants the temple to be built, and Krishna wants all of you to serve him, and that's why we are all here, and it is not some kind of accidental something happening here. So I'm very grateful to each and every one of you for your presence and for your service. Please contact Sumangala later. She will have a lot of things to put together for Gaura Purnima. And we will be sending out information, and she will be making further announcements before the event. And then the second announcement, this Gaura Purnima is in March 17th. On April 10th is Ram Navami. And we were planning to have an elaborate Ram Navami celebration. And it so happened our Srila Prabhupada Murti is here, and we will be welcoming Srila Prabhupada Murti on that particular day. And this again is a divine arrangement. Years ago, like when I used to go to Kishore Kishori temple years ago, one devotee who got a small Prabhupada Murti made as a gift for her husband. And something happened in their life, and then she gifted that to me and said I should take care of that deity. And this was made by His Grace Lochan Das Prabhu, the one and the only devotee who has served served Srila Prabhupada his entire life. He's almost 80 years old, and he has made the last big murti he made is TOVP, Srila Prabhupada Murti, very special features. And it so happened, if it is not a divine arrangement, what else is that? It so happened when I was looking for getting our Srila Prabhupada Murti for our temple, I came to realize that the original molds have gone to Jaipur and taken by Bhakti Charu Maharaj, and by that someone else there is making the Srila Prabhupada Murtis, and the features were not that great because somebody else was making. And so then again, it is Krishna's arrangement. I was able to get in touch with Lochan Das Prabhu, and he made an exception to the rule to make this murti for our temple. It was an exception to the rule. He had stopped making, and so he made the mold for Mayapur Srila Prabhupada, and he promised the murti for our temple, and with the same features. And so he made the murti. He was here with me for the past 5 days, and I cannot even begin to explain to you what it meant for me, for this community, and you will all feel the same when you participate in this particular event, which is happening on April 10th. So we have, with the help of the second initiated devotees, we had long discussions, and we decided to have a program schedule. Everything is ready, and we will be publicizing that program schedule very soon. And I request each and every one of you to be present here. This is a personal invitation for this event, which is April 10th, Srila Prabhupada welcoming and Sri Ram Navami celebration combined together. Please, I humbly request all of you and ask you to bring your family and friends. We will be reaching out to you. We are planning to have, where is Kalpataru, 251 preparations as an offering to Srila Prabhupada. And so everybody can participate in this. That is for April. May 15th, we have a fundraising event. You know the temple is almost there, and this is the time that anyone and everyone can help. The fundraising event, we are bringing Hema Malini here, and she will be, I think it's a banquet hall, and we request each and every one of you to stay in touch with Shyam Prabhu and Sangeeta Mataji and support them and bring in people for this event. The temple has a huge monetary commitment to the bank. We are moving forward. Krishna is making us move forward just as the wind blows. For the purpose of the wind blowing is to move things. Similarly, Krishna is moving things, and we also have a responsibility to go along with that. That responsibility is giving in our, little bit of energy and time in this direction. I will tell you one last thing, and that is His Grace Lochan Das Prabhu. He's almost 80 years old. And still, the kind of service that he does, if any one of you had been in my place and is able to see what he does, a person who does not think 1 minute about his own self, a person, even if his body is dropping, he wouldn't stop serving. And that is the kind of energy and focus and service that we see in saintly devotees. We are all aspiring to follow in their footsteps, and so I humbly request each and every one of you to give your 100% for this project. This is the time. There is no other time. There is no better time we are waiting for, and this is it. Two last things. One is Sumangala Mataji had asked me to announce that there is a Vaishnavi meeting today, and some special people have made some special prasadam and all that, and those Vaishnavis can pick up your prasadam and meet with her in that. Oh, it's a cooking demo. So you can all contact her and be happy in her association. That is one thing. And the last is, you all must have seen that yesterday we have dedicated 2 hours of kirtan here for praying for the well-being of all the innocent victims of this current situation in Ukraine and the whole Eastern Europe and the rest of the world as well. I would say the ripple effect is felt everywhere, including people living in this country. We are not exempt from feeling depressed, seeing what is going on. So we dedicated 2 hours of kirtan yesterday, and tonight also the kirtan is happening as always after this announcement. And I request all of you, you don't need to take the prasadam and leave as always. Whoever can stay and participate in this wonderful kirtan. And this prayer is the only thing that can help. And it helps. Prayer helps depending on how you pray. And so I humbly request all of you to sincerely pray from your heart for this, the well-being of the devotees. And for today, for the sponsors, spiritual and physical well-being, please chant after me. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So prasadam is served, and please attend to Sumangala's meeting. I think that's all for today. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.